we also watched a documentary on Netflix called Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. So a few weeks ago, you may remember we talked about true crime. We were talking about like what kind of content we watch on YouTube. And Cristine mentioned that she watches a lot of like true crime content,
But actually true crime.
but yeah, actual like very like objective true crime, and you don't like when it's sensationalized.
I basically watch footage of interrogations that
Yeah.
is just the actual raw footage, and a narrator talks like every 5 minutes, just giving a little bit of insight into the technique the officer is using, for
Yeah.
example.
What was that channel called?
JCS Criminal Psychology.
You know, we
I've
watched
watched
like
every
video.
single video of theirs now. Please post more. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
So, but in that episode, we talked about the fact how we don't like true crime that really sensationalizes cases. And when we watched the Cecil Hotel one on Netflix recently, it is maybe the perfect example of bad true crime. So let's get into it a little bit. Cecil Hotel, the series starts by, the sizzle reel of this hotel, and they're talking about all the terrible things that have happened there, and it's evil. It's like you're about to watch The Shining or something. They're basically implying from the intro that there's like evil spirits at this hotel.
Or that it's cursed. Like there's always bad.
Yeah.
There's people who do drugs there. There's people who die there, and I'm like, or it's like a poor,
That's
not that good quality.
By the end of the
area.
series, it's clear that it's like, no, it's just a hotel in a pretty bad area of downtown Los Angeles that has really cheap rooms. So it attracts a population of people who have drug problems and that are maybe involved in crime,
Yeah.
right? So bad things happen in that hotel because of that population. And the series like tries to redeem itself with that sort of message at the end that we need to give more like social supports to these people, as if it didn't entertain for the first like 80% of the show.
That the
it's
hotel is
like,
cursed.
ooh, maybe all the drug addicts are like demons or something. Like,
Yeah.
it was bonkers. But basically, the series really revolves around one specific case of someone disappearing at the hotel. Alyssa Lamb, she's actually a young Canadian woman, was on vacation. She does have a history of mental health issues, and she started behaving strangely at the hotel. So that she was staying in a room at the hotel where you actually shared a room with other people, and there was like a communal area and bathroom. And I guess she started doing strange things like locking the roommates out of the room and stuff like that. So the hotel was just like, this is weird. We'll just give her her own room. Came out later that I think she had stopped taking her medication too. And there's some very bizarre surveillance footage of the night she disappeared, in that she's acting very strangely in an elevator of the hotel. She gets on as if she's being followed. She's clearly in distress. She's pushing buttons. The doors aren't closing. And then she gets off the elevator, and she's never seen alive again. The show really entertains the sort of creepy, mysterious aspect of it, which, like, I understand, right? Because, like, this was sort of a viral clip on the internet for a long time before there was a documentary about it, right? The last moments you see of her are very compelling in that she's acting super strange. And if you are inclined to believe in supernatural things, it's not hard to let your imagination consider there's something spooky going on. But, like, it's very obvious what actually happened to her. She ended up on the roof of the hotel, probably through a fire escape, crawled into a water tank on top of the hotel and drowned. And that's like a really tragic, awful thing. And so to have this series really entertain the sort of spooky, mysterious aspect of it, and then they gave a lot of attention and airtime, particularly in the second or third episode, to a bunch of YouTubers who were really invested in her case. And they watched the content. They would show up at the hotel after her death, and they're basically like vlogging themselves, like, I'm on the roof where she died. This is so cool. Isn't this crazy? This, like, I feel creepy here. And it's like, why are you giving these people a platform? It made absolutely no sense why they were contributing to the story. Like, it's not like they were in a critical fashion saying, a bunch of people on the internet got interested in this story and were just wrong and speculating and falsely accusing people. They presented what these people were thinking as if it was like something deserving of our attention and validity. And I just think my main thing with true crime is I don't think it's bad to enjoy true crime. But I think something you can judge of any true crime content is if you were to sit down with the family of the victim and show them this series. If you created the Cecil Hotel and you sat down with the family of Alyssa Lamb and showed them this documentary, would you be able to look them in the face and say you feel like you did that story justice? And I just feel like this is such an obvious example of it's a pretty terrible example of when true crime just goes for the most sensational elements of a story to the detriment of telling a story that does justice to what actually happens.
Mm-hmm. And I think the problem with this one in particular is that it's like the truth, the objective truth of what happened in this case wasn't good enough to tell a story with. So, and it wasn't just Netflix, it was before Netflix, YouTubers and a bunch of conspiracy theorists and people who started Facebook groups about the mysterious disappearance of Elisa Lam. And with a lot of true crime, like my issue as well is people treat the reality as if it wasn't good enough because it's not interesting, and they will shift the narrative to something that is more entertaining. Mm-hmm. Now, some people who produce television will say, well, we need to do that in order to appeal to viewers because that's the point of our series is to be entertaining. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it irks me so much because no matter what you're doing for entertainment purposes, this is based off of a real tragedy. And I can appreciate the value of some true crime where we are learning about, how the justice system works, how there was a wrongful conviction, how the investigation was flawed and police practices, like these things should be shared and people should learn about these things. But when it's about sensationalizing the gruesome nature of the crime or embellishing the truth to make it sound more crazy and enticing, it kind of makes me sick. And I think to give more context to why I feel this way, maybe I'll just give a personal story. So I have drastically changed my mind about the way I feel about true crime personally, because when I was, a teenager, I loved CSI. And I'm sure I've said this like years ago at some point, because people have asked how I got into criminology. And the truth is, I liked shows like CSI. I liked Dexter, that was a fictional show about a serial killer. It just intrigued me, this idea of like, well, how do psychopaths think? It's interesting. Sure. And there's nothing wrong with being interested in this and wanting to understand it. But in my experience, going from just a teenager who thought this is cool to now having 2 degrees in criminology to working in crime statistics, my feelings about the media and the commodification and commercialization of true crime, which is this real story of someone who was victimized or some tragic event, I have shifted so much. And the sensationalizing of it, now to me, it's so clear how much of a disservice that does, not just to like directly to the victim and the families involved, but to society and the people who consume it, because it's not a real reflection of what we should be caring about the most. And this doesn't mean that I'm trying to, tell everyone you can't have fun and you can't watch stories about serial killers. Like, Dexter's still a good show, except the last episode ever. It was the worst episode ever. They need to redo that. But my opinions on it have changed a lot since I learned about criminology and crime, and the true harms and the intricacies of the justice system, and the idea of inflating or changing the truth just for the purposes of entertainment makes me feel gross.